welcome back. Today I will be discussing the locations of Faron, Eldin, and Lanayru regions in the Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword is the first within the release timeline and serves as an origin story for the series. It chronicles the story of the Demon King Demise, Hyrule's incarnation of Zelda, and the first hero of Hyrule, Link. This story also delves into the origins of the Sword of Evil's Bane, the Master Sword. Now, let me present to you the locations of each region and the evidence to support these locations. The Faron region is located in the southern part of the map, just south and southeast of Lake Hylia and south in Necluda and incorporating Lake Floria. Eldin is located in Akkala, just east of the Death Mountain caldera and straddling the border between the Akkala Highlands and Deep Akkala. Lanayru is located in the far west of the map, straddling the mountains that separate the Faron grasslands from the Gerudo Desert and encompasses part of the Gerudo Desert. Next, I will look at the most compelling evidence I have found to support the location of these three regions on the Breath of the Wild map. Faron is located in the southern region of Hyrule, in the vicinity of Lake Hylia and Necluda. I have separated Lake Floria from the original map because in Skyward Sword, getting to the lake is through an underground waterway. I believe this is an artistic decision by the game developers. This does not make my assertion incorrect, but shows the difference between a real map and an artistic map. The primary piece of evidence I have for this region is the Skyview Spring and the Spring of Courage. Both springs are located within the white circle. I use the springs as the location to align the region with the Breath of the Wild map. Let's take a look at the areas in both Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild. Now when comparing the two areas side by side, you can see that there are two rows of columns leading up to a platform before the goddess statue. Though the torches are gone in Breath of the Wild, these are the same types of columns in both games. Next, you can see the staircase leading up to the platform in both games as well. Though there are fewer stairs in Breath of the Wild, it still maintains the same basic setup. Also, the platform is the same in both games. It has 4 columns on it and is in the shape of an octagon. The small steps leading to the statue are hard to see, but can be seen just under the water in Breath of the Wild. Finally, the altar of the goddess has the same shape in both games. The 3 levels of the altar, the small obelisk on the second level, with one missing in Breath of the Wild, and the U-shaped alcove in the front are the same. This is why I lined up Faron region of Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild based on the springs. They are identical in both games, though time has ravaged the Skyview Temple and Spring by the time of Breath of the Wild. Lake Floria in Breath of the Wild is the closest body of water to this area, so I lined up both Lake Florias due to location and name. Plus, the area is a lush forested area, yet another similarity in both games. Now we will look at the Eldin region and see how the areas line up. Eldin lies due east of the Death Mountain caldera. This will make sense since the area in Skyward Sword was a highly active volcanic mountain range like Death Mountain. It is likely that these mountains went extinct or dormant by the time of Breath of the Wild and created the mountainous Akkala region. I have lined up the Eldin region similar to the Faron region. The Earth Spring from Skyward Sword and the Spring of Power are identical to each other. They are both located within the white circle and are the focal point where the maps align. Now let's look at the spring in both games and compare them like Faron. First, the door which Link enters in both games has a U shape and a crest at the center of the arch. These doors are identical in shape and design leading into the spring. Second, the number of columns and the style of the columns are the same in both games. Also, the torches that are on the columns are identical as well, making them the same in both games. Third, a stairway leads to another octagonal platform with 4 columns on the platform. These platforms line up in both games. Finally, the goddess statue altar has the same shape in both games. It is also important to note that there are waterfalls along the wall of both springs, with 2 of the waterfalls directly behind the statue in both games. Thus, Eldin lines up fairly well with the Spring of Power by comparing it to the Earth Spring. It would also make sense to place Eldin near Death Mountain due to the volcanic activity seen in both Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild. The final region to investigate is the Lanayru Desert region of Skyward Sword. Lanayru does not have a spring to align the region with Breath of the Wild, so I needed to use the overall geography of the region. When looking at the map of Lanayru, the mountains within the map ran north to south and did not have a section that ran east to west. This eliminated the Gerudo Highlands that are just north of the Gerudo Desert. Next, Spectacle Rock is not seen within the game or on the map of Lanayru. This would be a major landmark and would identify a location for the Lanayru region. Since it is not in the game, Spectacle Rock must be eliminated as a possible location. The location that is most likely is the southern portion of the mountain range in Breath of the Wild, separating the Faron grassland and Gerudo Desert. This would be the most likely area to place the Lanayru region, considering geographic locations and limitations. One final thing to support the location of Lanayru is the ancient sea that existed prior to the events of Breath of the Wild. During Skyward Sword, you ride on a small boat equipped with a time stone that turns the sands into an ancient sea. Later, you face a large sea monster from the past while on the ancient sea, Tantalus. Tantalus is called the Abyssal Leviathan, which shows that the ancient sea has massive creatures living in it. The Great Gerudo Skeleton is another Leviathan that can be found in Breath of the Wild, providing evidence of an ancient sea over the desert. The creature, Tantalus, and the Leviathan bones show that the Lanayru of the past once held an ancient sea that could support massive creatures within its depths. That is why the mountains separating the Faron grassland and the Gerudo Desert is the likely location of the Lanayru region. Based on my research, I believe these are the most likely locations for the 3 regions in Skyward Sword, with Faron in the south, Eldin in the northeast, and Lanayru in the southwest. Please let me know if there's anything I may have missed, and please join me on the next part of this journey as I look at the Minish Cap in my next video.